You want your buyer to realize that this consultation is a no pressure, no strings attached meeting. You're simply getting to know them and they're getting to know you, and you're each deciding if you want to work with one another. That's right, this is an interview process. Not just them for you, but you for them. My friends, we don't have to work with every client that comes our way, as long as we are abiding by fair housing. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking more about if the client you meet with, you guys just don't see eye to eye, you don't feel like you'll have a good professional working relationship together, guess what? You're going to figure that out really quickly during this buyer consultation and by taking them through these 3 steps. So we went through the Ford method. Everybody's relaxed. We're talking, we're connecting. Great. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, with your permission, I'd like to tell you about 3 things that are going to happen as a result of our meeting today. And the cool thing is, you guys get to decide which of these 3 things happens. The first thing that could happen is you're going to understand all the value I bring to the transaction. You're going to enjoy how I educate you about the process, and you're going to agree to want to work with me. And that would be fantastic. The second outcome that could happen is you may not understand all the value that I bring to the transaction, or just perhaps we don't make a good connection, and we don't have to work together. We can shake hands and part ways as friends, and you've still left this meeting knowing more than you did when we started. The third thing that could happen is I may decide that I'm not quite able to meet your needs, or maybe I feel we're not a good match to work together, and again, we can shake hands and part ways as friends. So Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, is it okay that one of those 3 outcomes is going to happen, and you get to decide which one it is? Great. Well, with your permission, let's get started talking you through the process of buying your next home. So when you go through those 3 options, you let the buyer know you are in control. By you, I mean the buyer. The buyer is in control. It's extremely rare that I've made the decision not to work with somebody. It only happened a few times, and it was mostly because the buyers weren't on the same page, or they weren't ready, or they had really unrealistic expectations. Guess what, guys? It's a good thing to understand that up front instead of 23 houses later. Wow, that's where we go crazy. So keep checking my stories, keep looking for my reels. I'm going to share more about what happens once we start educating them through the consultation process. See you later. Hey friends in real estate, thanks for clicking in to watch the next part of my Delivering Value Through the Buyer Consultation series. Again, I'm Jordan Sibley, team leader and CEO over at Keller Williams Realty Services in Mandeville and Hammond, Louisiana. And we've already covered why you should have a professional buyer consultation, how to get the client to agree to come meet you in your office, and we talked about once they're here, breaking the ice and starting to build a little rapport. So now we get into the meat of the buyer consultation. This is just part 1 of the meat of the buyer consultation, and that's the education part. Stop kidding yourself if you think, oh, well, I really only need to do a buyer consultation if it's a first-time buyer. That is so not true. The average American isn't buying a house, but anywhere from 7 to 10 years, maybe even more. So just because they bought a house in the past doesn't mean they remember the process. And friends, is the market the same as it was a couple years ago? Heck, even if they bought a house a year ago, is the market the same? Please shake your head no. No, it's not. So the way we educate a buyer about the market, and really about anything we're going to talk about in the coming videos, is you start by asking a question. You don't want to insult the buyer's intelligence by assuming they know nothing. So when you ask them a question first, you're giving them a chance to share their knowledge. And let's face it, human beings like talking about themselves. So if they've done a lot of research about the home buying process or about the market, give them a chance to shine. It'll only help build rapport. So the first question I'm going to ask is, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, tell me what you know about the local market in Covington, since that's where you mentioned you guys wanted to purchase your next home. Well, we've heard that there's a lot of houses for sale, and we should be able to get a pretty competitive price. I appreciate you guys sharing that with me. It sounds like you did your homework. So what I want to show you up on the screen here, and of course I do have a slide deck in the background when I'm presenting, and I have these statistics pulled up in graph format. I'll say, so again, I'm so glad to see that you guys did your homework. What I wanted to share with you is over the past 12 months, the city of Covington has been sitting pretty steady at about 5 to 6 months supply of inventory. And what that means is Covington's been experiencing a relatively balanced market, which means there's some homes out there that we can get some competitive pricing on. And there's also homes out there that are selling darn near at list price, some with maybe a couple offers on the table. So, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, it's my job to do research on the house you end up selecting and want to write an offer on to ensure you're getting the most competitive price possible. The next thing we want to educate the buyer about is the list price to sale price ratio. Now, friends, whether you're looking at month supply of inventory or list price to sale price ratio, the more granular you can get, the better. So for instance, in this example, I'm using clients who are just looking in Covington. But let's say they're exclusively looking in 3 different areas, then I'm going to pull those statistics for those 3 exact areas. I'm going to ask them, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, how familiar are you with the list price to sale price ratio in Covington? Well, what do you mean? So think of it this way. If you go shop for a car, there's going to be a big sticker price on the window, and we're going to call that the list price of the car. And of course, your goal is to walk off the lot with that new car, but not at that price. Different price, the sale price. So the ratio between those two numbers is your list price to sale price ratio. So for the entire city of Covington, in the past 12 months, they've been sitting at a roughly 97 to 98% list price to sale price ratio. So what does that mean to you guys? It means that buyers are negotiating a little bit off of the list price, but by no means are we in a market where a hot new listing comes up and we can make a lowball offer. So I'd rather turn you down now than disappoint you later if you think that every house we see we're automatically going to get a great deal on. I'm certainly going to let you know when there's deals to be had, and I want to present a realistic picture of the market. So taking my realtor hat off, putting my coach hat back on, I trust you can see how just the first 2 parts of educating them in the buyer consultation are going to set realistic expectations. Because when I was in production, I was not in the business of working with unrealistic buyers. I was in the business of working with educated, ready, able, and willing buyers who wanted to do what it took to get the next house of their dreams. So check in the next day or so. I'll be posting our next video in the series, Delivering Value Through the Buyer Consultation.